Okay, folks, for this exercise, we're going to have an introduction to geoprocessing and show a typical way in which we would use these tools to actually get answers. So I just made up something here for us to play around with. We're going to assume we need to find a suitable location for a new spacecraft manufacturing plant somewhere in the Antelope Valley. So kind of adding on to the whole Mojave spaceport idea, we're going to find a suitable location for actual building development, testing of something to launch astronauts into space, right? And while that may sound kind of ridiculous, this is actually the kind of stuff that I used to work on, working for planning departments and that kind of stuff, is where can we put something that might be potentially dangerous or noisy or smelly or whatever. So this is a typical thing that people do, even though this was just completely made up. So within the Antelope Valley, it's kind of a tricky place in which to work because part of it is in LA County and part of it is in Kern County. Just to make it easier, I went ahead and we're going to focus on the Kern County portion of the Antelope Valley and the Eastern Sierra. And honestly, when dealing with counties, Kern is a lot easier to work with from a business standpoint, which, for better or worse, you can think about that however you want to. But we're just going to focus on Kern County itself. So that's the set of data that I supplied. And also, we're going to work off of some assumptions. Okay, we're going to not just be able to put it wherever. We're going to have some rules that we have to meet before we can find a suitable location. So number one, we need to utilize a vacant parcel that is already zoned for industrial use. Okay, so we can't just go anywhere. We want to find something that's already designed for this industrial type of use. We'll see some zoning data here as we get going. I'll kind of explain more about that. And then it needs to be already open but kind of ready to go, that nobody's actually utilizing it. So we want to build on something like that. Okay. Also, number two, because the plant is going to have some nasty chemicals, potential explosive stuff, dangerous stuff, we're going to make sure that you cannot have a school within 3 miles of the site. So our site that we pick has to be at least 3 miles away from an existing school. And it can also cannot be within 1 mile of a major highway or interstate. Okay, so those are our 3 main rules. That's what we're working with. Okay, so when dealing with something like this, you need to really kind of start to think about what kind of layers or feature classes do I need, right? What do I need to begin to figure this out? Stuff like with the, if we need to know where the schools are and find a place that's 3 miles away from there, clearly we need some kind of schools feature class, right? Same thing with highways, interstates. If we need to be away from them, we need to know where they actually are. So if I'm faced with this kind of problem, I'm going to want to, think about what is it that I actually need. And then also any of these feature classes that I can get, I'm going to start thinking about, well, how can I, modify them, use them in a way to answer my question, right? And so my question here for this example is, where can I cite my, factory, compound, whatever it is that I'm trying to build, right? Where will that go? So I want to think about, okay, if I have these schools, I have roads, I have zoning, I have this stuff, what is it I can do to these existing layers to actually get that answer? All right, and then we're not going to do it here, but what would be a good move if you're working on this on your own is to write down a plan. Okay, I need this, and first I'm going to add this layer, and I'm going to do this process, and from there I'll then have this other layer, and so on. It's always good to write stuff down, write down notes, and really work with an existing plan That's the best move. Okay, but since we're just getting introduced to this, I'm going to just kind of walk you through here. We'll start playing with some of these tools and see how they work. Okay, so I've already downloaded the necessary files in the spacecraft folder. You'll find these in Canvas if you haven't already downloaded them, and unzip them and put them in a good location. Go ahead and pause this video and do that. But I've got them right here. And one thing that I've mentioned before, in fact, let me do it this way, because I know I'll do it this way. Just want to make sure you fully get this. Let's bring in this KC highways or Kern County highways. Current parcels, we'll bring that in. And with this one, I've already actually clipped it to this Eastern Sierra portion. In fact, if I bring in this project area, this kind of boot looking shape, that is everything east of the Sierra Nevada and the Tehachapi Mountains in Kern County. So this lower line right here is Avenue A in Rosamond, if you're familiar with the area, and kind of heading up into Mojave and Cal City and so on as you continue further north. So I made a little area here, and I use that to clip, bring this up, this parcels layer. This is so we can find vacant parcels, but I did that because for all of Kern County, it's a gigantic file. So I clipped that one for you, but one thing we'll do is we'll clip everything to this project area. Let's see, use codes. Bring that in. We'll use that later for the vacant stuff. I've got the Kern County boundary just as a kind of nice reference. So let me do that. Under here, of zoning. Bring that in. We'll get into what that is later on. And then also, finally, I have this schools feature class. And so with this, when you bring it in, if, assuming you brought some of the other stuff in first, it will give you this warning right here. And sometimes these warnings we can ignore. Other times we really need to pay attention to them, think about them. So this is saying that our Kern schools layer is in a different coordinate system from our other stuff that we're using. So this is in this North American datum of 1927. Everything else is in the North American datum of 1983. And as I mentioned before with geoprocessing, this is something we need to pay attention to when we're starting to do this kind of work. I'm just making a reference map. I'm not going to be changing any of the feature classes here. It's not going to be a big deal. I'm not going to freak out over this, and I'll just say close and not think about it, right? But here I want to think, okay, I need to be aware of this. I need to make some changes. So I'm going to close that. And just to confirm, if you don't have someone telling you what everything is in, you can always right-click and go to Properties. We'll wait for this to load up. And in this Source tab, you'll see Projected Coordinate System, NAD, 1983, State Plane, California, Zone 5, blah, 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 all of that. Okay, so that's what all of these other ones are in, and then Kern Schools is not. So that's what we want to fix. We want to reproject this Kern Schools layer into something else. And in order to do that, let's open up Arc Toolbox, and we'll let it think. There we go, and it threw it off the screen there. Okay, I believe I'm going to do this in the lazy way. Let's see, data management, yeah, projections and transformations. Here we go, project. So it's the data management tools, projections and transformations, and it's this last one that's just project. Some of these others are very useful, but not for what we're doing here. Like, for example, this define projection, that's if you don't have that projection file with your thing, where you bring it in and it says missing a spatial reference file or something like that, but you know it's supposed to be in something, you can go in and fix that. That's not the case here, right? Our stuff is already projected, but it's in the wrong projection or the wrong coordinate system. So we're going to use this project to create a new file in the proper projection. So open that up. So input, we're going to want to find our current schools. Let it think here. And then so it tells us it's in this NAD 1927 state plane. So it's the right state plane, which is just California system that we use for surveying a lot of public work stuff. It's stored in state plane, kind of similar to latitude and longitude or UTM or some of these other ones. It's just one that we typically use when we're doing this kind of work. Okay, so it's this the right system, just the wrong datum. So that's what we're going to be fixing. Okay, and so then output coordinate system, we hit this little browse button here. We go into projected. That's what we want. Let's see, state plane, open that up. NAD 83, and we want feet. And you can see there's a lot of different stuff in here. Basically what we do is if you don't know what these, CORS, international feet, that kind of stuff, find the most simple, straightforward thing. So NAD 1983, parentheses, US feet. Okay, and then from here, let's scroll down to California. We want zone 5. Okay, select that. Hit OK. Okay, and down here, this geographic transformation optional, it's going to use this NAD-CON algorithm, which is fine. I don't know if we hit the drop down. Yeah, you can see a bunch of other ones. Again, if you know a specific one you should be using, then by all means pick that one. Otherwise, let it, pick that default. Okay. So here we've got all that set. It should, as long as yours looks like this, we're good. Hit OK. And it'll slowly work. It is thinking. Just sometimes it's hard to realize that. I'm waiting. We should get a little check, but we'll wait calmly, patiently. Oh, it's thinking. There we go. And current schools underscore project. That's our new one right there. And if I right click, open attribute table, or not attribute table, you dummy. Hold on, right click on properties. In here, projected coordinate system, NAD 1983, looks perfect. Okay, and now to make sure that I don't get confused, I'm going to right click on this original current schools and I'm going to hit remove. Okay, and that's a good habit to get into when you're doing this kind of work and you're changing files and manipulating them and all that, producing these new ones. Get rid of the stuff that you no longer need, just to keep it, straightforward. Another thing I'm going to do is hit save. Put this in my, let's see, ArcGIS, spacecraft. We'll just call it space, so it'll make sense for me. Okay, and we're set there. So now that everything is in the same projected coordinate system, we know that the work we do is going to be as accurate as possible. So if we're clipping things or doing buffers or whatever, it's the computer's already done a lot of the hard work. So we're going to limit some of the errors that could show up. So that's why we went through that process here. So the first thing to do to make this easier is, let me dock this right here. The first thing to do, since we're going to be working in this certain area here, is let's clip everything, right? To actually be over here and get rid of all this extraneous stuff that's just taking up hard drive space and memory and all that, slowing down our machine. So a few different ways we can get at this. Number one, we can go in here to Analysis, Extract, Clip. We also have Geoprocessing, this little menu thing right here. Clip is an option there. It doesn't matter how you get to it. The tool should look like this right here. And so to use it, let's first take our new Kern Schools projected version. That'll be our input, right? That's the big thing. And then clip features will be this project area. Okay? And then output feature class. Like mine wants to put it in this default.gdb. I don't want that. I want to know exactly where my stuff is. And you can see this is where it automatically saved that Kern Schools project. I don't remember if I had an option to fix that or not. I wasn't really paying attention there. But now, if I wasn't paying attention, well, by golly, now I am. I want to put everything in the spacecraft folder, and I want to call it something that's actually meaningful. So like Kern Schools clip, right? So I know that's the clip schools feature class, right? So I want to give it some names so I know what it is. So if I walk away, take a lunch break, come back, need to use it for something else, I come back here, it's pretty obvious what each feature class is. So when I'm happy with that, I hit OK. So you can see on the lower right, it does a little clip ticker tape thing. And then it looks like it's done. And you can see, just to show a difference here, this green for the original. And let's do blue here. So you can see that those blue ones just exist within this boot-shaped project area, which means that this projected one, this total one, we're completely done with. I can remove that, get rid of it, don't need to worry about it. Okay, and so let's do the same thing. That parcels thing is already clipped. The Kern County shape itself, don't need to do that. We can just actually remove it. It's kind of a nice one to show the area. Maybe if you want to make for your final map, show all of Kern County later on as some kind of reference. That's totally fine, but for the work that we're doing, we want to also clip the highways and the zoning here, right? So just go through that just like I showed you. I'm going to save it into that default. I want to save it here. Also, you notice I'm doing the underscores. Don't want to have any spaces. This is where that really starts to get important. So there, do that one. Okay, once that successfully worked, I'll remove that. Let's get this zoning. Let's call this. And okay. This one may take a little longer because there's a lot more stuff in here. Complex file. But once we clip it and we get rid of the original one, hopefully everything will work a little faster. Okay, so we get rid of that. And then if you've done this successfully, you shouldn't see anything over here on the western side of the county. You should just have everything in this boot shape, right? And I'm just going to uncheck that project area for now because I've got all of this stuff. I'm going to hit save. Another good thing too is because I've made these shape files through this process, these things are a permanent thing. So if I needed to use, say, this clipped parcels file or the highway file or whatever for some other project, I can easily do that. Just find where I saved it, add it to another map document, so that's there. That's really, really useful. All right, so we've clipped all this stuff. That's easier. Let's start messing with this parcels information, and we want to find a vacant parcel. Okay, I'm going to open up the attribute table. Now in here we've got a lot of tax ID stuff, the size of some of these parcels, and then we have this use code field, right, which doesn't really help us if you don't know what a 5000 or a 6200 or any of these other use codes actually means, right? But luckily we have this use codes table. I open this one up. It's got the use code number itself and then this description over here. It cut the N off, so descriptio, right? Tells us what this thing is. So we're going to do a join like we've done before. So right click on parcels, go to joins and relates, go to join, and from here we're going to pick this use code field. It knows because it's the only table, it already populated this use codes table, and because there's a matching field in there, it already automatically put that in. And because we looked at these earlier, we know that the two use code fields are exactly what we want to use, right? And also make sure you're right clicking on the parcels itself to do that join. Don't do the join from the table, okay? So if you're happy with that, I'm just going to hit OK. This warning we can ignore. No, I don't want to do an index, just join the thing. And if I right click here, I'm going to open attribute table. If it worked, I'll have this descriptio thing at the end. So it matched that use code to this use code. You see 5,000 to 5,000. We know that means undeveloped land less than 20 acres, blah, 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 blah. Now, unfortunately, this Kern County parcels database and these use codes, not the best system ever implemented. It's too much. Within here, and you can see this VAC stands for vacant, but there's a lot of different types of vacant. 3 acres, but less than 7, I guess greater than 3, I don't know. But just that VAC means vacant. But also, if we look at this, we've got a lot going on here. We've got 123,000 different records. So just to go through and to select each vacant one at a time would be way too difficult, right? And if I don't know if these are the only vacant possibilities, I mean, I could, and this is something you can always do, right click, hit like sort descending. So this work here, again, it's over 100,000 records, so it can sometimes take a while. But I mean, you could do that and see if you could see all of the different VAC records, but still, that's going to take a while to go through here and to find that, right? So a better thing to do is let's select one of these vacant records, or all of these vacant records. So to do that, let's go in here to select by attributes, click that, and in this window, so select from this KC Parcels clip use code, so that shows it's the join one, where just this descriptio thing is like, right, not equal to something, but like, and I'm not even going to do that in values. I'm going to hit a space, do a single little quote apostrophe mark there. I'm going to type VAC, and then I'm going to put the percent sign in there, and then close it with another single quote. And so this is saying, look through this descriptio field. Anywhere you see capital VAC and then anything else past that, grab it, right? So if it's 3 acres or 7 acres or whatever, these different ones they have, just grab them all as long as it has that vacant thing at the beginning. And I'm going to check to make sure I got this right. I'm going to hit verify. It says it's okay. And if you don't get this, if you get some error, there's a good chance you didn't put a space in there, used a double quote instead of a single quote. or whatever. So make sure it matches this perfectly. I'm going to hit apply. And we'll have this think. And so once that works, you can see the little blue shapes drawn here. That highlighted blue means it's been selected. And you can see down here 50,664 of those 123,000 were selected. And if I click this show selected records, wait, you should see with all of these, let's do its thing so it doesn't crash. See, and some of these, they actually spell out vacant. Others have this VAC, all T-zone, include T. Again, it's a mess. This is not what you do when you're creating these databases, but luckily we have a way to kind of work around that, right? A better database design would make it so we don't have to get creative and do all this kind of stuff. It would be consistent throughout here, okay? But don't need to worry about it. We got it. So these are vacant parcels. Let's close them so we can see where they are. And then from here, now that they're selected, let's right-click on KC Parcels Clip, go down to Data, Export Data, and then here, Export Selected Features. So that was automatically populated. Leave it if that's what it looks like. If it doesn't have that, if it has like all features, come in here and make sure you hit Selected Features. You can leave the coordinate system the same, and then Output Feature Class. I want to make sure that I'm saving it not in this seismic thing, but in my spacecraft thing. And with here, with this one, I'm going to call it vacant parcels. So again, I know exactly what I'm working with. I hit OK. So it's slowly going through here, grabbing every single one. I'm going to hit yes. I want it. And so now I have this new vacant parcels layer, and the first thing I'm going to gladly do is remove the original one, because again, this will speed us up quite a bit. And I'm going to change this color to something. Let's just make it yellow so I can see it. So I've got all these different yellow parcels. Those are all vacant in this area. So cool. We know where our vacant parcels are. That's one of the things here we need to do, right? But at the same time, it already needs to be zoned for industrial purposes, right? That it's not a place where you're going to build a house or a commercial business or something like that. We need to figure out the actual industrial zoning. Okay, so in this zoning thing, open attribute table. Now this one is a little easier to use, mainly because it was designed by a guy who knew what he was doing. But in here we've got the zoning for these areas. So like A is the exclusive agriculture zone, right? This MP, mobile home park. And some of these have these combining zone things on here. So there's a lot going on with this stuff. But what we want are anything that's zoned M1, M2, or M3, which are the different types of industrial zoning. So we can do another select by attributes. Okay, and in this zone code 1, I'm going to hit that, and I'm just going to do this, equals, because I can, where is it right here? I get unique values to just automatically load them. This M-1, if I double click that, right there, that'll grab this. I think M1 was light industrial, and M2 is medium, and M3 is heavy, or something like that. But if I do that, I'm set. I could also do the zone code 1 and then do the M and the parentheses, but that could also get this mobile home park, some of these other ones that we have, right? So just to make it easier, and so I don't have to think too much. I'm going to say select from this field over here, zone code 1 if it's this M1, or select it, code 1 equals if it's M2, or zone code 1 if it equals M3. Okay, and I need to reproduce this original statement after the or, right? So you notice I put the zone code 1 field 3 times in here because I can't just do equals M1 or M2 or M3. The computer doesn't think that way, right? So you want to have it look exactly like this. Let me hit verify. That worked. Another thing I did or, because if you do and, this is a logic thing, if I say zone code 1 equals M1 and zone code 1 equals M2, that means that that same record has to have both M1 and M2, which is never going to happen in here. That's actually impossible for the way this is set up. But the computer isn't thinking about what's possible or not. It's just following my logic that I set out here. So I want or because I want it to either be M1 or I want to pick the ones that are M2 or the ones that are M3. Right? So that's how we set up some of these statements here for the computer to follow. All right, I'm going to hit apply, and I get 167. If I hit this, you can see M1, M3. You can also see we've got some of this extra stuff added on here, but it doesn't matter because we have this nice field here that just gets to the heart of what these things are. So yeah, we've got heavy industrial, light manufacturing, and so on. So I'll close that. See some of these areas. I'm going to do the same thing. Right click, data, export data, and I want selected features. And my spacecraft thing, I'm going to call it industrial zones, and hit save, and hit OK, and yes, I want to do that, and I'm going to get rid of my original thing. Let's make this so it stands out. Make it that blue. And so we've got the industrial zoning and the vacant parcels. And you see you have some places where it's industrial, but there's no vacant parcel, or they're vacant parcels, but it's not industrial. So we want to get rid of the stuff. We want to, get rid of the stuff that doesn't meet both of these things. So the best tool for that is intersect. Okay? And it goes back, I talked about this, intersect and union. The difference there, if I did union, it would maintain everything in there, whether they touch or don't. That's not what I want here. I want intersect because I want both the vacant parcels and I want the industrial zoning. So I'll select intersect, and you can see the cartoon, and this shows that. And then from this drop down, I'm going to take industrial zones. I'm going to take vacant parcels, put them in there. I'm going to save it to a good location. And so in here, I'll call it about industrial vacant. Hit save. Now, some of these we can leave this as is because we don't really care about the tables at all or anything. But like join attributes, this determines the stuff that's taken from the attribute tables. What are you going to save? Right? Same thing here. This input thing, it's kind of dealing with that stuff. We don't need to worry about it because all I really care about is that exact location here. So I'm going to leave this stuff and hit OK. And it will think, and we'll see what it turns up. It's thinking and thinking and thinking. There we go. So industrial vacant. Let me just turn these off. In fact, let's make this one green. And so you can see here. So we went from, first off, from this whole area, and we shrunk it down here to some of these these possibilities that we've got here, right? So these are parcels that are both industrial and already vacant. So we've streamlined this process, right? We narrowed our scope. We're getting closer to figuring out where this thing can be. But remember, we also have 3 miles from a school, 1 mile from a major highway or interstate. And so this is where the buffer tool comes in handy. So again, with the buffer tool, we're drawing some kind of circle or shape at a specified distance around that input feature. So let's do the schools first. Current schools clip. We're going to save this in a good place. And you can see we're adding a lot of different new features, so it's very useful to give these good names. And one thing I do with my buffers and all that, I'm going to call it schools 3 miles. That's my own code for a buffer. And that way, too, if I'm kind of experimenting with things, sometimes I need to make it at this specified distance. Sometimes I'm playing around and I think, well, let's see what a 1 mile looks like, a 2 mile, and so on. This is just another way I can keep track of that stuff. So we've got that there. And then this is important, this linear unit, right? If we don't put anything here, it's not going to know what to do. So in 3, I'm going to change that to miles. So now it knows what to do. And then finally, this is one thing I always change, or 99% of the time I change. This dissolve type, I want to do all, okay, which means if I have a bunch of schools together, like this one right here, something tells me these 3 schools are within 3 miles of each other. So if I don't do this dissolve type as all, I'm going to have 3 separate overlapping ugly circles, but you dissolve it, you'll have one cleaner looking shape around there. Okay, so switch that dissolve type to all. Just going to make life easier. And I'm going to hit OK. See the result soon. There we go. So this is 3 miles around the schools, and it's blended together, these different circles, so we don't have some ugly, confusing thing. And what this also shows us, let me move this up. You see, we have this industrial vacant here, but it's too close to an existing school, so a lot of this doesn't work, right? So there's the usefulness, again, of some of these tools. We're not going to waste our time with those things that won't meet our criteria. Let's do it again with the highways. Save it. And this one's 1 mile, if I recall correctly. Solve type all. Undo that. And there you go. And holy smokes, look at that. It just gets rid of a lot of possible stuff right there. So now we've met our criteria. Industrial, vacant, 3 miles from a school, 1 mile from a major highway. We've done that stuff, but our resulting map is also kind of funky looking right here. So this is where that erase tool comes in handy. And I'm looking at, in fact, it should be right here, right? Do I not have erase? I might not have it on this one. Let's search for tools. Let's do erase, yeah, analysis. Will it work? It came up. Okay. I'm not going to ask any questions. We're just going to go with it, see if it works. So this is where we can actually get rid of some of the stuff. So our input, say, is our industrial vacant. Our erase features, we can use one of these buffers, like schools 3 miles. And so with this one, and unfortunately we can only do it once. There are some different ways around this, but I'm just going to do it this way here. In here we're going to call it indus vacant no schools. That makes sense to me because we're erasing the schools thing. I'm going to hit OK. If I don't get an error because I didn't pay enough. Perfect, it worked. So if you can't do this, it's no big deal. Again, this is a tool that you have to have the most advanced version to be able to do this, but that's okay. We'll live. And let's zoom back into this area. So you can see, and this kind of ties in with like the sliver idea in some cases where you have some stuff that, it's not a full parcel, right? So it doesn't quite totally make sense, but at least it's helping us to eliminate stuff. Okay, let me turn off this highways thing. So it's just erased that portion right there. Let's turn that off, and let's turn this off so you can see it's just gotten rid of those things that fall within that buffer. And then we also have this. We can do our erase tool again. So I'm just going to go back in and do the search. It's still there. So I'm going to now use, not this industrial vacant. I should have gotten rid of it to make sure it made sense. But it's this one I just did with the no schools. I'll put that there. And for erase features, use the highway buffer. I'm going to save it once again. And in fact, this I'm just going to call final site, right? Because once I do this, it's every possible place that meets the criteria. So I'll do that. I'll hit OK. Okay, and let's really make this stand out here. Okay, so you can see it got rid of that stuff, and it's only that little pink bit. Now, clearly, none of these are complete parcels, so they probably wouldn't work, period, right? Whereas this area over here would fit beautifully based on the criteria that we were given, right? And so, honestly, in fact, let's change this from a black border to an equally obnoxious pink. And so then I'm going to turn off everything else. So these slivers we're going to ignore, but we've got this right here, and it looks like this thing out here, which I don't even know. Does that get in the way of something? I don't know. It's just a triangular shape. Maybe that would work. Maybe not. But honestly, that first thing we had down here, this looks like a good spot. A tiny little portion of this massive area. And again, you can see how useful this is. With just a few moments, the right data, knowing what we needed to do, we eliminated all of this stuff out here and found that this is the spot where we should concentrate our efforts to buy this land, locate our spacecraft manufacturing facility right here. This is how powerful ArcGIS can be, and this is why people use it quite a bit, right? So there you go. You've got this introduction to geoprocessing. If I went too fast, pause this stuff, take your time with it, make sure you understand why you're doing what you're doing, and if you achieved this, if you get this as your really one legitimate remaining area, perfect. You did everything properly. So what I want you to do, now that we've got this, is clean up this map in some way. Give me some kind of reference to where it is in all of Kern County or within our project area. You can label these highways here. You can leave the schools on, get rid of them, however you want to do it. But give me a final map here in the layout view. Make something that clearly shows me that this spot right here is our suitable location, right? And then do the whole file and export map, export it as a PDF, and upload it to the appropriate part of Canvas. All right? All right, good work, geographers.